I want to turn now to Marco Lopez, who's in the CBS News Washington Bureau. Mr. Lopez is a former chief of staff for the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol and also a former U.S. advisor for Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto's presidential campaign. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So the DHS is preparing to release new immigration guidelines, and among them, immigrants captured at the border will be immediately returned home instead of being detained in the U.S. Also, undocumented immigrants will face expedited deportation proceedings, as well as U.S. agencies will now be authorized to prosecute parents for paying smugglers to bring their kids here. So I want to get your take on these new guidelines.
You know, I think that there is still a lot of confusion out there with the sources that I'm speaking to in the Department of Homeland Security and specifically at Immigration and Customs Enforcement. There's no clarity still as to the finality of how they're going to be implementing a lot of those measures. I think that what's problematic for the most part is that these are activities, and the immigration situation in America is something that you cannot enforce your way out of. And I think that what they are trying to do is expand the number of individuals that Immigration and Customs Enforcement can go after and detain. The current number is about 41,000 people in detention facilities across America today that are being held and processed as part of an immigration enforcement action. The directive coming from the White House is to expand those numbers to 80,000. And so what, Vlad, that ends up happening is that you begin to do these massive raids that we've seen in the past that we actually had not seen during the Obama administration. And so the objective to simply grow that number to show that you are being strong or that you are being more strict on the definition of the law, I think is unfortunate because it begins to grow this wave of fear in immigration and immigrant communities throughout America.
And yet, Marco, the president last week, some people feel, gave a little bit of hope to, for example, people that are part of the DACA program, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. He spoke sort of emotionally about it, saying that we're going to deal with DACA with heart. He went on to say it's a very difficult situation or difficult subject for me, and saying some of the kids, the dreamers, are absolutely incredible kids. So, and also some of the rules that were perhaps considered more extreme, like overturning DACA, are not at this moment being pursued by the president. Does that mean you're sort of starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel when at least it comes to that, or is there still an enormous amount of fear?
Well, I do believe that there is an enormous amount of fear because he says that in one breath, and then we hear and we see these leaked documents that basically show that they are expanding the number of individuals and the families that they can now go after. So whereas before the policy was that you showed discretion to those folks that are in the country that have not committed a major offense, and you're bunching them all into the same. So basically, if you have a narco-terrorist in our communities that is dealing drugs or has another violent crime, instead of prioritizing your enforcement efforts on them, as had been the case, now you're bunching in everyone. So it doesn't matter under the Trump administration if you're working in the hospitality industry or if you're working in a field in Iowa picking crops. It does not matter. You're just as guilty, and the law sees you no different, or at least Donald Trump sees you no more different. And the other point, I think, is that in order to tackle this problem, you need the cooperation of Mexican authorities because in order to get to a point that we have strong border security, you need to be able to employ and deploy resources on both sides of the border. And so nobody in Mexico has been consulted. I've been in conversations throughout the weekend and last week to see what level of cooperation has existed, and as they've been drafting these unfortunate policies. And there has still not been any real effort to bring in the Mexican counterparts, sit with them at the table, and try to get to a place that actually enhances security for everyone.
Mark, I want to get your take on just two things before we go. One, this border wall that the president has proposed, do you think that that's something that will stem the flow of illegal immigration? And two, there's been sort of rift between the president and Mexico. There's a meeting that was canceled. Can that be repaired, or is it something that people are now saying, let bygones be bygones, we're starting on a new foot here?
So bricks and mortar will not do more than intelligence and technology. I think technology and intelligence are the two primary recipes that are needed in order to achieve greater border security. Part of intelligence requires that we're working with Mexico. And so this leads to your second point. We can't have a productive working relationship with Mexico if we offend them at every corner, if we talk down to them at every opportunity, and if we don't appreciate the fact that the majority of states in America today's economy depends on the exports that those citizens, whether you are in Iowa, in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Texas, or basically every state in America today, depends on a positive, strong economic relationship with Mexico, and we are ignoring that element to it. The reality is immigration is an economic issue before it is a law enforcement issue. And so we're missing the boat when we only look at part of the equation. So what I would basically say that in order to repair the relationship with Mexico, because it is broken, let's not make a mistake about that, you need to consider the entire equation. And until we do that, I don't think Mexico is in a place to want to be at the table with someone that insults them at every corner.
All right, Marco Lopez, as always, we appreciate the point of view and your time. Thank you, sir.